The rain hit harder than I expected. One second, I was driving with just enough confidence to think I'd make it to the next town. And the next, my car was dead. My phone was flashing 1%. And the only light for miles was a tiny porch glow flickering in the distance. I wasn't scared yet. I was just tired, cold, and done pretending I knew where I was going. So I walked. Mud in my shoes, bag over my head, just hoping someone might answer. When I knocked, I didn't expect anything. Not help, not shelter, maybe not even an answer. But he opened the door. Older man, quiet eyes, didn't ask a thing. "You look like you need somewhere to be." I nodded. He stepped aside. And that one step, that moment, would change everything about who I thought I was and where I thought I was headed. My name is Lena. I'm 26. And when I left the city 2 weeks ago, I didn't have a real destination. Just a full tank, a packed trunk, and a feeling that if I didn't get out now, I'd forget who I was entirely. I wasn't running away from one thing. It was everything. A job that drained me. A boyfriend who only noticed me when I was silent. Friends who vanished the second I stopped being the put-together one. The life I had worked so hard to build wasn't a life at all. It was a box. One I had sealed myself inside so tightly I couldn't breathe. So I left. No grand breakdown, no dramatic goodbye. Just a note on the counter and a GPS set for somewhere else. The plan, if you could call it that, was simple. Drive, think, sleep in cheap motels. Figure out who I was when no one was watching. I thought being alone would feel freeing, but after 4 days of back roads, bad diner coffee, and motel rooms with stained ceilings, I started to feel the kind of lonely that doesn't go away with company, the kind that's as baked into your ribs, the kind that follows you, even when you leave the city behind. By the time the storm hit, I was already near empty, in more ways than one. I hadn't eaten since noon. My phone charger stopped working 2 days earlier. My car was making that subtle, stomach-sinking click when I turned the key. I told myself I'd make it to the next gas station, but when the rain started falling sideways and the clouds turned that strange greenish black, I realized I wasn't going anywhere. The engine stalled, the air inside the car grew cold, the signal bars vanished. And there I was, on a stretch of highway that didn't even have a name. I stared through the windshield, watching the rain streak sideways, the wind tugging at the trees like it wanted to rip them out of the earth. And then I saw it, faint, far, a porch light, one little glow in the distance, the kind of light that doesn't mean much until it's the only one around. I hesitated, but then I opened the door, grabbed my backpack, and stepped into the storm. I didn't know it yet, but that light, that stranger behind the door, that night, would be the thing that turned the rest of my story around. Not because it saved me, but because, for the first time in a long time, someone saw me. The walk to the house wasn't long, maybe a quarter mile, but the storm made it feel like 10. Rain soaked through my jacket in seconds. My boots were heavy with mud. The wind pushed so hard I had to lean into it just to keep moving. I almost turned back, but then I saw the porch, a small wooden stoop, tucked under an overhang just deep enough to shield one person. The light above the door buzzed gently, warm yellow against a world gone gray. I stepped onto the porch, dripping and shivering. My heart thudded in my ears as I raised my hand to knock. Just once, soft. The door opened almost immediately, like he'd been waiting. He was in his 60s, maybe older, broad shoulders, lined face, a knit sweater stretched over a flannel shirt. No fear, no hesitation, just quiet eyes, the kind that had seen more than they'd ever admit. He didn't ask who I was, didn't demand an explanation, didn't even look surprised. He simply said, "You look like you need somewhere to be tonight." I nodded, too cold and too tired to speak. He stepped aside. The inside of the cabin was simple. One room, a fireplace already glowing low, a kettle on the stove just beginning to hiss. No TV, no clocks, just shelves of books, a few paintings of woods and water, and a single worn armchair beside a couch draped in a quilt. "You hungry?" he asked. I shook my head, still dripping, hugging my arms tight. "Towels are in the basket. You can change in the bathroom. Fire's warm. No one will bother you here." He poured tea while I changed into dry clothes from my backpack, and when I came back out, he handed me a mug without a word. We sat in silence. Not awkward, just still. I didn't tell him my name. He didn't ask, he didn't pry, didn't press, didn't try to fix me with advice or cheap wisdom. He just let me be. Sometimes that's more healing than anything else. Later, as the wind howled and the rain smacked the windows, I lay on the couch wrapped in a soft blanket that smelled like cedar and laundry soap. He sat by the fire, reading quietly. The last thing I heard before sleep took me was the crackle of wood and the faint clink of his teacup setting down on a saucer. I didn't feel scared. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt safe. I woke to silence. Not the unsettling kind, but the kind that feels earned, like the storm had said what it needed to say and finally moved on. Soft gray light spilled in through the windows. The fire had died to a few glowing embers. The air still smelled like pine and something slightly sweet, maybe the tea from the night before. I sat up slowly, blanket falling from my shoulders. For a second, I forgot where I was. Then it all came back. The rain, the knock, the stranger who let me in. The house was still and warm, no signs of movement, no creak of floorboards, no sound from the back room. I folded the blanket carefully and placed it on the arm of the couch. My boots were dry by the fire, tucked neatly beside the hearth, cleaned of all the mud I had tracked in. And there on the small kitchen table was a folded piece of paper with my name written on the front. Lena. I stared at it for a moment. I hadn't told him my name, I was sure of that. But there it was, in clear, careful handwriting, like he'd known it long before I walked up his steps. I unfolded the note. "Some people gave me shelter once. This is me passing it forward. Your car is handled. Don't worry about it. Whatever you're leaving behind, make sure it's not yourself. Stay dry, kid. The world's better with you in it." There was no signature. I stepped outside, half expecting to find him waiting on the porch. But he was gone. The chair beside the door was empty. The storm had scrubbed the world clean. Trees glistening, the sky stretched open and blue like it had never held a single drop of rain. Then I saw the driveway. My car, the same one that had refused to start the night before, sat there, spotless, dry, tires replaced, fuel tank full, and tucked under the wiper blade was a sealed envelope. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was enough cash to cover what I'd lost in my breakup, and more. But it wasn't the money that took my breath away. It was the photograph inside. A photo of my mother, maybe 17, sitting on a porch I now recognized. Laughing, hair pulled back, the same smile I saw every time I looked in the mirror. And next to her, a young man, tall, familiar eyes, the man from the night before. I sat in the driver's seat, holding the photograph like it might vanish if I blinked. It was her, my mother, no doubt, younger, full of light, the way I only saw her in a few old photos tucked in boxes my father never opened after she passed. But this one, this photo, I'd never seen before. And that boy beside her, now a man, the same man who let me in without hesitation. The man who gave me tea and silence and warmth. The man who didn't ask my name, because somehow he already knew it. I opened the envelope again, hands trembling. Beneath the photo, folded neatly, was a second note. Longer this time, typed. "Lena, I don't know if you'll remember me. You were just a baby when I saw you last. You probably only know one version of your mother, the one she became after she moved on. But before that, before life got heavy, she was my best friend, maybe more. She came to this same cabin once, in a storm, just like you, alone, trying to outrun something she couldn't name. I didn't save her. She didn't need saving. I just offered her quiet, and for one night she accepted it. Years later, she sent me a photo of you as a toddler. I kept it in a drawer. I never reached out. I figured it wasn't my place. But when I opened the door last night and saw you standing there, I knew. The same eyes, same way you were half apologizing just for needing help. I wanted to tell you, I wanted to say something. But what mattered more was that you had a space to be still. Because I know what it feels like to lose yourself in noise. And I know how much it can mean when someone gives you a night without judgment. I don't need anything in return. Just promise me one thing. When someone knocks on your door one day, lost, soaked, and barely holding it together, open it. I don't remember how long I sat there. Could have been 5 minutes. Could have been an hour, but something inside me cracked. Not broken, not shattered, just released. A pressure I didn't know I'd been holding since the day my mother died. A question I never knew I was allowed to ask. Where did she go when she needed someone? Now I knew. Here. To him. To peace. And now, somehow, so had I. I drove for 3 more days after I left the cabin. Not because I was still running, but because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't lost anymore. There was a stillness in me I hadn't known before. Like someone had turned down the noise in my chest. The questions didn't all have answers, but they finally felt like they could wait. I had the photo in my glove box, the letter folded neatly in my backpack, and 2,000 cash I hadn't earned, but had been trusted with anyway. I used part of it to pay off the last of my credit card debt. Part of it went to first month's rent on a studio in a quiet town I'd always wanted to visit, but never had time for. And the rest? The rest stayed in an envelope in my nightstand, because I knew it wasn't mine to keep, just mine to carry until someone else needed it. I started writing again, not for a job, not for approval, just for myself. Stories, letters to my mom, thoughts I'd buried during the years I spent proving I was fine. Somewhere in the pages I found her voice again. But more than that, I found my own. A few months later, I went back to the cabin to see if it was real. The porch still creaked, the windows still shimmered with old glass, but the man was gone. I asked the neighbor, a woman who kept bees and knitted wool hats she sold at the market. He passed 2 weeks after the storm, she told me gently. But he left a note, said the place wasn't meant to sit empty. Said it was for you. Didn't give your name, just said, she'll know who she is when she finds the key. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a rusted cabin key and a single line in the same neat handwriting. Now it's your turn. I didn't sell the cabin and I didn't post about it online. I didn't rent it out. I opened the door, lit the fire, put clean towels in a basket by the couch, and waited. Not because I needed someone, but because someday someone would. Someone lost, tired, soaked to the bone with more than just rain. And when they knocked, I'd step aside. We all have storms. And sometimes what saves us isn't the lightning ending, it's the light we find in the middle of it. She didn't know where she was going, but she found a place to rest. And when the world quieted down just long enough, it handed her the next chapter.